Winter Mystic. It's, one of my favorite subjects in art is um, kind of mystical, um, beyond our understanding. Um, Art has the ability to transport you to other worlds and tap into things beyond our normal reality. So those
Awesome.
areas always interest me, and um, I noticed, it's there's a lot of artists that have mystical themes in their work, and thought we'd put a show together with that theme. So this is an exciting show. Um, so we're going to go through. We've got a mix of some um, historic pieces and contemporary pieces um, in the show, and we're going to go through. Um, and for the contemporary artists, a lot of them are here with their work, and we'll get to check in with them on their studio and get their take on mysticism in their work. Um, so, yeah, looking forward to it. Alex is going to start with the historic pieces, and we'll just kind of bounce off each other. She'll start with one artist, and then they'll bounce to a contemporary artist. So, looking forward to
Okay.
that.
Hi, everybody. I'm Alex. I am a consultant here at BG, and I work with our contemporary arts branch of things. I just want to point out to you guys, to our audience here, that everybody has been muted just temporarily so that we can make sure that we don't have any background noise and anything like that going on. A lot of people tend to forget that they're not muted, and there's a dog in the back room or a siren. I'm in New York City, so there are constantly sirens, and I just wanted to make a note of that in case. But please feel free to ask questions, raise a hand, or send me a chat. My name is Alex Guajardo. I think I'm the only Alex in the, yes, so far I'm the only Alex, but feel free to ask Om or myself any questions. We are so happy to chat with you. But as Om mentioned, this is our Winter Mystic show, and we are showing both historical and contemporary examples of artworks that are really united by their explorations of the mystical, which is characterized in a lot of different ways these days. Initially, way back in the beginning of time, when you look at you look at history into back when Christianity was really the law of the land. And let's be real, it still is a little bit, but we saw mysticism as a kind of a state of transformation, which is really what classic examples are all about, and what the contemporary has embraced. So mysticism, it can be a conversation, it can be an experience of sunlight, it can be any number of experiences that cause a moment of transformation, a moment of ecstasy, of self-awareness, and really help you to become one with maybe the universe or maybe with God, whatever greater, bigger thing there is out there for you. And that is how we kind of put all these pieces together to create this really tremendous show. So one of the things that we are looking at, we have a few historic pieces here as well. Are we going to show them, or are we just going to direct people to
Oh yeah, we're
our
gonna show them.
OVR?
Emma's got them all queued up, so hit the first one, Emma, and
Perfect. Thank you,
yeah.
Emma. So this is a piece by an artist that I'm sure quite a few people are familiar with. His name is Francisco de Goya, and he was born in Spain. Let me just find my I want to make sure I get the date right. He was born in Spain in 1746. And Francisco Goya was a court painter for the Spanish Empire, for the Spanish royal family. And he had a really, really difficult life. His first wife, and he had a really difficult marriage. They didn't get along very well, and they suffered numerous losses of pregnancy. And so basically, Goya painted with a great deal of emotion in his artwork, in a really emotive, deeply personal, deeply emotionally profound kind of way. This piece is really fun because it reminds me a little bit of like political satire, political cartoons that we see in the New Yorker and things like that right now. It's called Los Caprichos, Subir y Bajar, which means to go, the rise and the fall. And Los Caprichos translates directly to caprices. So caprices being the kind of the whims of the people. But this piece, you can see Goya's usage of what appears to be a mythological creature. His name is Pan. He is a god of the wilderness, of fawns. He is linked to nymphs, and he's also often associated with sexual activity, though that's not his primary, his primary responsibility. But what we see him doing here, he represents folly, the folly of the Spanish War, the Napoleonic Wars, which are going on at the end of the 18th century. And we see him flipping a Spanish soldier into the air who is simultaneously tearing his own hair out in perhaps hilarity, in frustration, in a way that is emblematic of the insanity, the hilarity, and the absolute senselessness of that war. So we really wanted to bring this kind of mystical creature and these mythical creatures. This also comes out of Spanish folkloric tradition. And we really wanted to bring that in to give a greater historical context to some of the other artwork that we are showing in a contemporary kind of way. So we coupled this piece with some pieces by Jordi Alcaraz, who is another Spanish artist born in Barcelona in the 60s. And he is known for work that is also deeply spiritual, but really attempts to create kind of a moment where the viewer becomes very, very clear on their situation, that they're looking at artwork, that they are looking into the window of the artist's soul, which Alcaraz bears in every single piece he makes. This piece called Dues Gots is actually written in Castilian, which is the language that the language in Spain. And it's a representation of that transformative moment that I was just talking about. It's a representation of a moment of absolute and total transformation, where he realizes when he creates this plane, this artistic plane. You can see over there's a giant black droplet, and then next to it is what appears to be a little droplet of water, which is actually piercing through the casing of the piece itself. And these two drops represent two different states of being. They represent being in a moment of consciousness and a moment of unconsciousness, which I think, sorry guys, I accidentally minimized my screen. Which is, a really fascinating way to look at what we're talking about here with the Los Caprichos, which is talking about this moment of intense emotional output, in the way that you compare it to the piece by Jordi Alcaraz, which is so equally emotional and poetic, but in a very different way. So we wanted to sort of splice this together with pieces that we're showing by Jim Holyoke, who Jim also works with a lot of mythical creatures and mystical creatures that are both of his own invention and from his travels abroad, his travels across the world. So they are things like gnomes, they're little satyrs and funny little birds that all have the same sort of mythical but mystical interpretation as well. Do you want to take over about Jim? Did I lose you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. Jim has a fascination with things that are real and not real at the same time. He sees dinosaurs in that same light, and he travels the world doing residencies. So he's always fascinated with the folklore and elements of mythology and the places that he goes to that are kind of linked in with the environment, which is a big factor in his work, is human connection with nature and the environment. So he's studied elves in Iceland and troll creatures in Norway, and these gnomes are part of that as well. And this is from a trek, I believe in Nepal. It's looking down on a tall mountain there. It looks almost like a temple, but it's actually the top of the peak, but feels very mystical. And each side of the mountain looks like a different mountain. And yeah, it's a beautiful piece. Yeah. So yeah, that's Jim.
Okay. I also really like the way that he makes. We hear a lot about the ascetic, the Hindu or the Buddhist ascetic, who lives on a mountaintop in order to attain enlightenment, and I get that feeling a lot from this piece, Conrad and Geese, North Dakota. I mean, I know. I'm sorry, not North Dakota, not dated. Total mind fart. But I get the feeling of the ascetic who seeks, the moment of mysticism, of transformation that I've been speaking of is also really similar to the Buddhist concept of nirvana and achieving ultimate enlightenment and understanding of the world around it. So when we talk about these different mountain peaks, we get a really strong impression of things like that person who has isolated themselves from the rest of the world in order to attain that kind of understanding, that kind of feeling and understanding of the world around them, sense of the world around them. So I really appreciate this piece, and a lot of others, which give me the same sort of impression. I also feel a little bit.
His most recent trip was to Nepal, so it's very
there you go,
Buddhist area there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very magical piece, this one.
Definitely.
Yeah, love
it. Okay, Emma, can we move on to Dorothea Tanning, please? Bateau Blue. So this piece, Dorothea Tanning, she was born in the US in 1910 and is not super well known, but she was amongst a group of surrealists who we all know very well, a group of surrealists, including the artist Max Ernst, to whom she was later married. But Dorothea is a tremendously strong artist in her own right. And this piece is really special when we start to talk about the way that mysticism is ecumenical, the way that it was treated in Christianity. We have a huge window into that. And what I'm speaking of here is that you can see that the piece is a depiction of an angel. And when you get a little closer into it, there are a lot of other signs and symbols that reveal itself to you. The angel is carrying a pocket watch. She has her arm aloft and she's holding in a pocket watch where you see that she's black and white up there. Angels, typically throughout Renaissance painting and things and medieval painting before that, were used to signify and to symbol messengers and harbingers of change. They only appeared when something tremendous was about to happen. For example, when Mary was informed that she was going to bear God's son, the archangel Michael came and he explained it to her. And later on, that's a period called the Annunciation, but later on, angels were given kind of, because they symbolize purity and generally speaking, good blessings, good tidings, they are God's messengers. They have a lot of inherent meaning within them. So the pocket watch is a symbol of time, obviously, everybody knows that, but the pocket watch also gives a kind of attention to the moments that I've been discussing, to the impermanence of our situation, to the impermanence of the world around us, and to the constantly changing nature of our world around us. So another super interesting aspect that I wanted to translate over to another artist that we're showing tonight is the inclusion on the right side of an eyeball, or it looks like a female's eye, sort of like a facet, a little slice of a female's eye. And the eye is a really powerful symbol, which has been used the world over in cultures all over the world, from Indian to Spanish to Islamic to Jewish to Christian. It inhabits a space that is really universal. And so what is I think one of the most interesting aspects about this is the way that the eye is used to convey not only understanding and intelligence, but also it's used as a talisman of sorts, a talisman which serves to ward off evil spirits and curses. The evil eye, which is known throughout Islamic and Jewish cultures, and a lot of people wear them. And this is such an interesting inclusion in this moment. It's really a protective kind of presence with an angel, and with the eye, it is very familiar to the way that they're treated around the world. So I think what is so, even though this is a rather dark kind of palette for this piece, what you get is a really beatific and especially kind of calming, peaceful message from this piece, which I think we can translate really well to pieces by our next artist, Stephen Singapore. I'm not sure. Stephen, are you here? We have so...
He wasn't sure he would make it. So
don't believe he's here.
I don't see him. Yeah, but one thing to point out in his pieces here is they're life-size, and it's actually a hole in the canvas where the face should be, so that your own face could be placed in the face of the spiritual figure, so you can place yourself in their image, sort of thing. So yeah, they're very interesting.
Is that a mirror?
It's not a mirror, it's a hole in the canvas, so you can actually go around behind it and put your head through the hole and become a Buddha.
Become a Buddha under the banyan tree, attaining enlightenment, that mystical moment of ultimate transformation. Although it does look a little bit like a more of a pastoral landscape than the banyan tree. That's really, I thought it was a mirror. I love that. One of the final historical pieces, because I don't want to dwell too much on the history. We have so many talented artists here. I really want to let them have a moment to speak themselves. But one of the final pieces that we're going to look at for the historical end is by Giorgio de Chirico. Giorgio de Chirico was born in Greece, and he's of Italian descent. He was born in Greece in 1888, and similar to Goya, he had a difficult upbringing, and was deeply suspicious of the things around him. He tended to see things in a way that was a little bit more of a pessimistic kind of slant to them, which he attributes, this piece in particular is a really interesting segue to it, but he attributes his painting style. He began a Scuola Metafisica in Italy, in Florence, Italy, actually, with a number of other artists. But he attributes his interest in the metaphysical and in these moments of transformation. And he was in the Piazza Santa Croce in Florence, and he had this moment that he termed a revelation. He was sitting there watching the shadows pass through. Piazza Santa Croce also has a really large, famous Gothic cathedral, and he was watching shadows pass through the square. The squares in Florence are all really pretty tightly enclosed. They have structures on every single side. So the shadows are really dramatic in the middle of the day. And Santa Croce is huge. I mean, it's I've had the fortune to study in Florence, but one of the largest churches I've ever seen. And he describes seeing the light pass across the facade of the church itself. And he describes that moment as a real and true transformative moment for him, wherein he finally understood what he was meant to do, which was to begin this Scuola Metafisica, which means School of Metaphysical Painting. And the work is characterized by this kind of enigmatic and unsettling, but spiritual moment as well. This piece here is a depiction of, it's called Teseo, which is the Italian pronunciation of the name Theseus. Theseus is a Greek character in mythology who was the founder of Athens, and also he has a position in Greek history a little bit like Hercules. He had 6 labors that he needed to fight through in order to prove his worth and become the king of Athens. But the one that most of us hear about is his defeat of the Minotaur. A Minotaur was a was half bull on top and half man on the bottom, mythical beast that lived in a labyrinth. And Theseus was able to defeat him with the help of a nymph named Ariadne, whom he later married and made Athena angry, and it was a whole big thing. But the problem, or not the problem, but the heroism of this moment is found in the actual mission itself, which was every 7 years, 7 Athenian boys and 7 Athenian girls had to be sent to Crete, where the Minotaur lived, the island of Crete, for sacrifice, essentially to keep him from destroying the island and destroying the surrounding areas. But Theseus decided one year that he was no longer going to allow for his cities, sons and daughters. He has defeated on the shores of Crete. After he has defeated the Minotaur, he's heading back to Athens in a shower of fame and glory. But something that is really one of the most powerful takeaways from this moment is the way that he outsmarted the Minotaur by using it's described a little bit as like a ball of yarn that Ariadne gave him that helped him find his way into and back out of the labyrinth. And the trickery and the moment in which he finally does capitulate, and I'm sorry, not capitulate, in the moment that the Minotaur capitulates and he stabs him with his sword is described as a moment in which Theseus was anointed as a king of kings and as a hero that really that saved mankind. So what we wanted to do now was bring this over to another one of our artists, Thomas, who deals with some Greek mythology as well in his works. Thomas, I know you're here. If you would like to, I'm going to find you and unmute you in just a moment, and we will, here you go. We would love to hear your thoughts about your pieces.
Sure. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not specifically married to Greek mythology, but it just happened to be that these couple of paintings, the one on the middle called Prometheus, sort of focuses on that. Actually, I mean, we know the story of Prometheus bringing fire to humanity. And to be absolutely honest, so I developed a process that I call freed painting. And freed painting is paint supported by encapsulated strength members liberated from the canvas surface, existing freely in three-dimensional space. So this painting that you're looking at has no canvas. This is hundreds of strands of paint suspended in three-dimensional space. And so the idea is that it's a flame. It's abstract, but has this hint of representation. And so the painting itself is depicting this flame that Prometheus brought to humanity. And maybe in an arrogant sense of the way I'm using it metaphorically, in that I am bringing freed painting to the art world. And so in a sense, I'm playing the role of Prometheus through this painting.
I can definitely see the connection there.
Thank you. The next painting is a biblical painting that's called Samson, and this is the loops, the gold. Yes, correct. Thank you. So this is another freed painting where essentially we know the story of Samson and Delilah, where he gathered his strength from his hair. And so I made this painting being many, many strands of looped paint. So if you were able to come up close and look at it, it would look like a cascade of long hair. I guess not ironically, at the start of the pandemic, I stopped cutting my hair. So I haven't cut my hair in a year. And so my hair is the longest it's been. So it's sort of a little bit of a self-portrait, but also, yeah, kind of this exploration of mythic strength. And that's kind of what is accompanying the painting. So anyway, that's that one. The last one is called, I'm brain farting. It's called Angel Wing. Yes, thank you. Carolina's Ascension. And so this is essentially the wing of an angel. And the idea behind it was that my mother-in-law had been battling multiple myeloma cancer for the past few years. And at the beginning of 2020, we really kind of learned that there wasn't much more that could be done for her medically. And so my wife had the hard choice, the hard decision that it was time to have her go into hospice. And so at that time, I thought, I want to make a painting sort of representing this angelic aspect of this transition that happens. And she passed away at Thanksgiving in 2020. And what happens as the body deteriorates, sort of this glow, the spirit emerges, and the shell falls away, and the spirit emerges. And so it's sort of ironic that I made this painting prior to her passing, but it captured, I think, just that whole aspect, that whole transition from the mortal, the physical, to the everlasting and the eternal. And it's the idea of flight, ascension, and so that's where it got its name, Angel Wing, Carolina's Ascension. So that's what that's about.
Thank you for sharing that with us. It's a really
Thank you. Thank
touching
you.
tribute.
I'm really honored to be able to be part of this. Thank you, Om, and be able to be in the presence of, be along here with so many talented artists. So I really appreciate the opportunity.
Pleasure to have you. You had mentioned you may take the camera off and give us a closer look in your studio there. Did you still want to do that?
Certainly, yeah, I'd love to do that. How would I go about that, Om? Sorry.
Do you see a way to flip the screen on your camera there?
Yeah.
Great.
So,
Uh,
okay, so here I am. So, okay. So this is Prometheus. So this is sort of up close. Can you, yeah. So these are the strands, but you see here how this has no supporting canvas. This is all encapsulated strength members with paint existing free of the canvas in three-dimensional space. So I think it's a pretty neat process. I don't know of it being done before, so I'm having a lot of fun exploring it. This is Samson, so you can see all the loops. So this is sort of like long golden curly hair cascading down from the character Samson. And then lastly is Angel Wing. And this embellishment was added to the strands to kind of make them look like long feathers. And so there's the golden and the white pearl paint that I used that really kind of gives it, I think, an ethereal quality, a heavenly kind of quality. So that's what that's about.
Thank you very
What
much.
kind of paint are you using?
It's all acrylic medium. Yeah, so it's all commercially available acrylic medium. Here in Los Angeles, there's a place called Nova Color, and that's where I get my mediums and paints.
I've definitely not seen that before. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we're back with you. Is Anne around? Did she make it?
She didn't make it, so yeah,
All
let's
right.
have a look at the Anne McCoy piece. Anne is genius level expert on alchemy, all different types of alchemy from around the world. She her therapist, and she studied under Jung's student C.A. Meyer. So this work is a tribute to C.A. Meyer, and it's 4 doorways. There's a lot of the 3 stages of alchemy, which is there's a white happy stage, a red kind of transition stage, and dark black stage, and they kind of cycle through each other. So there's a lot of that symbology in this piece, which is works of hers in every museum you can think of. This one's in MoMA. One of the works from this edition is in MoMA, and it's just a very powerful piece that taps into mysticism.
And she too is using those icons of angels, of a seated Buddha, of a seated ascetic, of the tree of life in the right central panel.
Yes.
She too has really embraced the use of those icons that we saw in Tanning's work, that we saw in Sangapore's work, and even into Goya. So
Absolutely, yeah.
a very rich tradition.
Yeah, it comes from from the Jungian, the collective unconscious symbols that are kind of universal throughout different forms of mythology, and it will definitely come into play in her work in very, very deep. You could probably write 3 chapters of a book on this piece.
A couple theses.
Yeah. So that's we're very happy to have this piece in the show. She made it available especially for the Winter Mystic show. And yeah.
Do we have Susan here?
No, not that I can see. She may phone in. But two artists from a similar time period, but totally different movements. Susan Moss and Anne McCoy both came into prominence in the 70s. Susan Moss sort of tied together there's a tapping, like keys tapping somewhere. They're sort of brought together like the East Coast abstract expressionism with the California cool. The California cool was a more color field sort of thing, and she brought in more raw expressionism into that. It's and there's a lot of spirituality in her work as well. She also has studied a lot of natural healing, and it uses like all natural mediums, one of which that she invented to keep her studio healthy. And so there's a lot of spirituality and other elements from her studies in the natural healing areas. Did you have anything to add about her work, Alex? Oh, you're on mute, sorry.
Okay, it's been 11 months. I promise I'll get the hang of this. I was going to mention only that I feel like this black and white piece in particular, Earthslide 439, is a really beautiful tie-in to the same sort of phases of alchemy that you were just mentioning. The black phase, the white phase, and the moments in between them, as we see these overlapping circles, which kind of create the same, a similar impression that I really appreciate. So I think now we wanted to speak to a couple of our other artists that we had in the show.
Great. Excellent. So let's see, let me pick one out. I've lost my list here. So Peter, how's it going? Peter, do you want to unmute yourself? Can you hear me? You're on mute, buddy. You just got to unmute yourself if you don't mind.
I'm unmuted. How are you?
Excellent. So that's a spectacular piece behind you there. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Sure, I'd love to. So I finished this painting. It's a diptych. I finished it in November and December. So they're recent pieces. They're oil on canvas. They're 49.5 by 42 inches. The name of the painting is The Light is Good, Day 1. The Light is Good Day 2. The one on the left is day 2, and the one on the right is day 1. And so as it relates to the show where we have here, it's about creationism ultimately. And so I was motivated from Genesis. In Genesis, God saw the light as good. And I think scientists look at that reading often and hear the light, and light is the universal energy force that makes everything. And so what I have here is, it's sort of like my interpretation of the creation of an alternative universe. And I also, may have sort of a provincial religious beliefs from my upbringing. But on the flip side, I look at the single source of creation of a God, if you will, as being infinite. And in the first piece, which is The Light is Good Day 1, I've depicted these little images creating light. And all these evolving, rotating, vibrating motifs that are spinning in some form of control into another universe where light just sort of expands on another more bright level. And so ultimately, the bright, meaning the one on this one right here I'm pointing at, is a little bit brighter than this one. And so, I have forms of, the physics or quantum physics, cellular biology, and geometry play a big impact in everything I do, as well as, my own individual religious and spiritual beliefs. And so when I'm creating any piece, I think about all these things, but when I ultimately start doing it, I just sort of map out the light and dark ends of the piece. And then I just consciously start almost unconsciously drawing these motifs. And I really don't even think about anything while I'm drawing it. It's almost as escape that I'm in a different world or universe, if you will. I mean, that's the
So you're experiencing that mystical moment.
Excuse me?
You're experiencing that transformative moment.
I am in the moment when I'm drawing, and these are all, they're all hand rendered. I don't use tape. They're all oil paintings. So they're multiple coats in order to get, I'm really sort of, I guess you might say, there's a little OCD in me that I would like to have, a uniformity in all the lines. They're very linear and geometric. And yeah, I'm thinking about that. But the actual motifs you see, they just kind of come out of nowhere. I don't know how to explain that. And that's the way it is with all of my art. I really am not thinking about it when I'm creating it.
Peter, how do you pick
part? Go ahead.
How do you pick the colors? I notice you use a lot of pinks and light blues. Is there a reason for that?
I'm sorry, I'm not going to get up to hear you. What did you say? I'm a little hard of hearing. I have surfer ear.
Oh yeah, Peter, I notice you use a lot of pinks and light blues in these. Is there a reason for that?
It was interesting. I was listening to the lecture earlier about Florence, and I've been to Santa Croce, and we have friends in Florence. And, a lot of it's kind of apricot, I think it is, the colors. I always sort of think about like one color comes to mind when I begin a painting. And I'm limited. There's only actually 7 colors here. There's one color for the negative spaces, the yellow on the left and the orange on the right. Yeah, right. Orange on the right and yellow on the left. But other than that, I kind of, it's like an interplay of colors. They're all talking to one another. It's almost as if they're kind of in unison with one another and kind of feeling each other out, so to speak. I mean, not in a weird way, but trying to find equilibrium in color. And so I'm not really thinking about the colors before I start the painting. But when I begin the painting, I am very conscious of the colors that go into these. So is there any symbolic meaning behind the yellow and the orange other than to evoke light. And in this painting, there are multiple gods, if you will, bodhisattvas, creating light in this one. And here, the creation has begun, and there are these like cellular bioforms that are kind of evolving and spinning into, well, I talked about this with Om earlier, and I'll let you interpret what's going on here. But there's sort of a feminine and masculine creation scene going on here in an abstract way. I don't know how else to say it. Where can I say it? I really want the viewer to look at these things and see what they want, because that's what abstract art's about. But I create these figures, and it's coming from my brain, and that's what I'm thinking about when I'm creating them. And when other people see something completely different, I'm thrilled by it, and I want to hear what it is they see, and I think that's really interesting. Did I answer your question?
Excellent.
Yes.
Yes, you did.
One other question. How are those
That
two
was great.
paintings related? I didn't really catch that.
I have to get close again. I have that surfer ear. What is that?
You have those two, they're like side, is that one piece or is that two pieces side by side?
Well, that's a good question, and thank you. So it's a diptych, right? So it's two pieces, and ultimately they're interchangeable. So when I configure these pieces and I map them out, I go from a light to a dark shade. So there's actually 7 colors with a light and a dark shade of each color. And when I map them out and draw out these geometric forms, this one, in fact, most of my paintings are they can be aligned in all 4 ways. This one aligns in 2 ways. It can align in the format that I have it, or I could flip it and it aligns in the opposite direction. And you can see that on the artsy page. I sent them 2 images of them aligning in different directions. So I would leave it to the viewer to make that distinction, which one they like the best. What I like here is there's this eye right here. And I thought about, in the lecture earlier, I was going, wow, the eye pops up in a lot, and it's almost like an egg.
So you have to purchase them together, right?
Excuse me?
Do they go together or would you sell them separately?
I would sell them separately.
You'd sell them
I
separately.
would like people to own my art. But if they think it looks better together, great. If they don't, I like them both together or apart, either way.
I have a question. Did you study art or are you self-taught like outsider artist? Because you were working.
And that's a better question, because I've been painting my entire life.
Okay.
Since I was a kid, I've been drawing all my life, and I've been drawing obsessively and painting all my life. But I was a corporate person.
Okay.
My father didn't want me to go to art school. He wanted me to get a good career. So I studied math and economics.
Okay.
But I took all the art classes through high school, technical drawing, 4 years of it. I wanted to be an architect. So I've taken lots of drawing classes, and I've had some painting classes to learn about mediums. So is the answer, am I self-taught? No. Am I formally taught through an art school? No.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm an older guy, so I've been doing it a long time. So practice.
Your work reminds me of like mid-century modern images, and I'm impressed by your steady hand. Also.
Yeah, I'm just hoping it doesn't start shaking as I get older. But
No,
I'll figure that out. Have you ever seen a Matisse cutout?
Sure.
An original of a Matisse cutout?
Yeah, there's always a creative way to deal with whatever obstacles are out there.
Well,
right?
Matisse's cutouts are all cracked up, and the cuts aren't even. But when they reproduced them in prints, they're beautiful. So at some point, if that happens, I'll start doing something different. But this is all freehand. The only tape I would ever put on would be perhaps in a panel painting where I want the side to be crisp, but there's no tape. It is pretty darn steady. I mean, when I'm drafting it, I will use straight edges, and I do measure. It's ultimately the draftsman in me. But No, there's no, it is all freehand. And, anything else?
Well, they're kind of like California futuristic.
Okay, I like that. I like that a lot. I'm a California person. I've been surfing, born in the ocean and surfing most of my life. I come from a surfing family. So you may or may not see it. I look at this as sort of quasi surf art. It's not the surf movie surf art. It's geometric, but I've got waves going on throughout the whole painting. And I look at waves in various ways, such as in quantum mechanics as waves, sound waves, light waves, evolving and growing and throwing themselves from one hemisphere to another.
I was comparing it to the Italian futurists, but it's more laid back, happy, futurism.
I don't know how laid back that is.
No, futurism, like the intensity is there, but it's not as aggressive. You know what I mean? It's California. That's anyway.
Yeah,
whatever they are.
I by the way, thank you for that. That's. I'm sorry, I'm out of the screen. I'm going back and forth. I set myself back up here. So we're in my studio right now.
Oh, it's great.
Great. Well, that was great. That's as a contrast to all the color in this piece. Let's hop over to Robert Morrison and look at his black and white works. I'm getting a lag in my video. Hopefully you guys can hear me. If not,
wrong Robert Morrison, Ohm.
This is Robert Morrison Sr. We want Robert Morrison Jr.
Hi.
Hey.
So my pieces, in a way, started about 3 decades ago when I was a young sculptor, and I spent my lunch hours during my day job at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Chicago. And I would literally see a show 20 times when it was up. And I would go every day and I would sit in a different room. And I noticed that regardless of what show I saw, there were always these sculptures in the room. And they wore navy blazers and gray flannel slacks. And sometimes they would talk to you when you moved too close to a painting to smell whether it was fresh or not. And I realized that you could ask them questions. And so I would go up to them and I would ask them what their favorite piece was, who was in that day, what piece did people stand in front of the longest. And I would learn their names, and then I would go back for the next show, and they would tell me the same things about new work. And about 2 or 3 years ago, I was in the Oriental Institute at University of Chicago, and I was looking at 5,000-year-old sculpture, and all of us were there, and there were the young and the old, and we were just moving by it. But these sculptures were standing so still, and they were watching us. And I thought, they were made to be watched, to be looked at. And they sat there for 5,000 years watching culture go by. And I wondered if I could interview them like I interviewed the security guards some years ago. And they wouldn't talk to me. But I'm basically a street photographer. And so I thought, what if I tried to be them? And I just stood in the gallery and I watched to see what they saw. And so that's where moving meditation came from. And so there's, I don't know, maybe 35 pieces or thereabouts in the total set. But they're mainly at the Oriental Institute and University of Chicago and the Art Institute of Chicago. Mixture of different art. Some of it, the pieces that Ohm picked for this show are 1,000 years old, in some cases 600 years old, thereabouts. Japanese, Buddhist, Indian, both Buddhist and Hindu images. But there's pieces from the Renaissance that I've tried to climb inside of and watch and see what they see. So that's kind of where moving meditation came from. So when you're in art museums, realize that the pieces are watching you.
Great. I just share.
I love your comment about the guards at the MCA. I'm from Chicago as well, born and raised, so I have spent quite a lot of time with those guards at the MCA. They've never really warmed up to me though.
Well, you have to go back. You have to go back to 3 or 4 days a week for months on end. I had that day job for a little over a year, so I spent a lot of time with them.
When you mentioned trying to smell those pieces, I know
Yeah.
exactly what that's like.
Well, I set off the beam at the Art Institute all the time when there are
I've done that
contemporary
too.
shows, because you need to know how fresh it is
Yep.
or what kind of ink it was. So the
Totally agree.
pieces themselves were kind of a collaboration with Hiromi Paper. So in LA, or now in Culver City. So I've experimented for 20 years now with printing photos on lots of different either machine or handmade Japanese papers. These are basically Azuka washi paper, and they're kind of a custom toned print on there. But I've done a fair bit of work printing on handmade Gampi Japanese papers as well, and they're just it's half about the paper and half about the image.
I like, it opens a lot of narrative the way that you've taken these. This one's face is almost disappeared. There's it looks like almost a some sort of spiritual, what do you call that, where you're graduating to another plane of existence sort of thing going on.
Nirvana.
And this, that, yeah, this almost looks like people are turning their back on mysticism sort of thing. But that's my interpretations. But I'm saying I like the way that they're open to they kind of open it up to interpreting meaning without being a directive. Was that intentional, or it's more just a flow state of meditation as you're taking the photos?
For my photography, typically I work from a concept for the series, and then individual pieces just happen because it's street photography. So you're so the piece of Parvati Uma that you were first looking at, so she's behind glass, and so I'm using reflections to kind of hide parts of the image. In many cases, there are reflections upon reflections. So the Unshakable One piece, it's a natural reflection that's created by the plexiglass that's around the images and the person's image. So I'm basically just working with what's there. And then a lot of it is like fishing, to be honest. You just you see a composition and you just stand and wait for things to happen. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. But that's kind of street photography.
Excellent. Yeah, the subject matter kind of distracted me from that, but it is very much, it is street photography. Um, yeah, that's a great point. Excellent. Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it. So let's see, we've got um, I will butcher the first name, but it's Aloj. If you want to unmute and tell me how I got that wrong.
Yeah, pretty wrong. No, my name is it's Alyosha, but it took me a long time to get my own name, so don't worry about it. Took me a couple of years. Appreciate it, Alex. Thank you so much. I really do.
Yeah, great to be showing your work in the show. Emma, do you want to share screen of those pieces?
Yeah, I tried to. Unfortunately, I don't have. They are actually currently exhibited in a group show in Yonkers, so I don't have them here. I set my background up with what I have left in my studio.
No worries. They're very big pieces. They're about how wide are they? The pieces.
48 by. Oh no, this one is 60 by 72. I think the one that you have, and the other one, the Seth and I, is 60 by 72, and then the corner is 48 by 72. I think so. But I unfortunately don't have them.
I think you might be sharing the wrong screen.
This is it. Yeah, these two.
Oh, you see it? I just don't see it. Okay. Okay, great.
Okay, this is the smaller version, 36 by 60, yeah.
So tell me a little, there's, it's definitely beyond a strictly representational space. There feels like something mystical going on with the color and the shape. You want to, you don't have to say specifically, but give us a little bit of background on this piece.
Sure. The two pieces you picked are actually quite diverse in what they represent. 2020 pretty much was pretty prolific in work for me. And I started pretty much unraveling the metaphorical closet of my coming of age and like development in my life. So what I do a lot is exploring the relationship, I guess, between time and space and memories, and see how it comes together. This would go more towards something claustrophobical, I would say, exploring that. I thought about getting into a space that might be a little bit too tight. And in coloring, I try to manipulate like bounce off light maybe, and get a little bit of a claustrophobic feeling in it. Pretty much all I can share is my own confusion. So I'm going to a place that I really am not sure where, but probably related to trauma, probably related to like growing up and being unsure and confused. A lot of confusion for sure.
Excellent.
The color of this piece is
let's
stunning.
have a look at the other one.
I appreciate it. I was studying a lot. I was just like very much appreciating and like focusing on the chapel, on the Rothko Chapel in Texas. So that's where the purple came to light. I tried to do it a little bit more.
Definitely. The Rothko Chapel is incredible. What a great inspiration.
Yeah, I tried to with the surfaces that he used, I tried to create a space instead of like the surfaces, which I really love his work. And this is, this is the pendulum going to the other direction. This piece is called Seth and I, and it's always, I mean, for sure Edward Hopper influences and such. But also for me, there's always a gaze, and the gaze always like comes from me, from the outside, from the inside out. So there's a lot of longing, you know, like a lot of longing to belong, feeling a little bit like a misfit, trying to fit in. And here I'm watching the watcher pretty much. So it's based on a photo that I took in 2010 of a very good friend of mine who passed, and the photo was taken in Louisiana. And yeah, again, my work is emotionally charged. So I come from, like, I try to paint experiences, my own experiences. I'm working on the current series, which are these behind me, the spheres. And these are called Thinking of Earlier Times. And I try to transport myself into feelings that I had maybe as a kid, or like to explore all of that. I want to, like, just honestly, for me, my work has to pose a question. I don't want to give an answer. I want to ask a question. And I don't want to impose my opinions on people. So you can reflect yourself in my work. I hope so. That's my goal. Let's put it this way. I'm sorry. This is my goal. I'd like to, for people to reflect their own experiences and pretty much come up with their own, pretty much, I make them part of the creative. I want to make the spectator part of the creative process, which for me doesn't end when I put the brush down, but it goes on, hopefully for a long time. Hopefully, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to be self-indulging. I would hope for it to last for a long time, but who knows? Who really knows? Yeah. But yeah, my studio is in New York. I live in my studio. So because rent is so high, as most of you East Coasters know. So I have, unfortunately, to live in an apartment with holes in the walls and pay, like, security deposit never getting back to me. So that's for sure. I might squat that building.
Excellent. I think a fellow New Yorker is Steve Morris. If you want to jump on, we'll have a look at your work as well. Thank you very much for that. That was great insight to those pieces. Steve, do you want to unmute yourself and have a chat?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we hear
It's like
you.
the phone ad, right? You can hear me.
Yes. Are you in New York as well?
I am. I am on the Upper West Side.
Okay. Okay, great.
Do you want to ask something, or shall I just?
Yeah, just bringing up the piece, and let's get into it, because it's got a great kind of a harmonious juxtaposition of different. There's things from its spiritual feeling, mixed with like comic book characters and all sorts of interesting imagery in your work. So we can bounce off of this one to begin with.
Is it possible to enlarge it?
Yeah, that should be possible.
I haven't seen it for a while.
Sure.
Oh yeah. Cool. Yeah, I just want to say thank you very much, Om and Alex, for putting this on. It's no small task to get this stuff together and make it happen with people, and I, for one, appreciate it. I have to say, I have questions about the whole mystic or mystical idea. I think that in some regards, it's an easy trope to slide into, almost like abstraction, where there are, how can I say, known things to do that can make you perhaps not focus as much as you might. There was a comment about before, early on, about how when you're doing things intuitively and not thinking, it's almost like a mystical experience. I really have to object to that. I think that there's, the more that you're thinking and applying yourself and dipping into your intellect and your knowledge and trying as articulately as possible to execute that to connect with others, the better. So I think that the mystical might be seen best and more useful as an idea of previously unknown instinctual things that may have happened that were beyond another definition. But I find it very important to not to, for want of a better word, to hide behind these definitions, and to say that if, in a sense, it would be healthy, I think, for all artists to totally drop from this point in time, absolutely now, anything previously which was called mystical or whatever. Because if we hang on to these things, we keep collecting these things and stuffing our pockets with these things, it's going to drag us down from moving towards the future. And I think one of the dangerous things with doing this is that you can start to use them as crutches, and you can allow them to inhibit your own development and whatever uniqueness you may be able to offer into the future, where in 1,000 years people are then talking back at us guys as not being people that just had 1 foot in the mystical and 1 foot now, you know, homaging the mystical, but actually created something new that has a whole different name. And I think that is extremely important. I do get the idea that there are elements of mystical, like is it Jungian, the whole idea of universal knowledge, etc. And the idea of, you know, that I think there's like 20 or 30 symbols that appear in cave paintings all over the world, just 20 or 30 that repeat all over the world without any indication that there was any communication between the civilizations that did them. That's maybe just a trait of human psyche in general, just the general fundamental wiring of the human mind. But I think if we stick too much into, hey, look how mystical this is, you know, it's not going to help the future. It's not going to help us freeing ourselves to make something fresh. If something is intuitively created, I think it's best, rather than to say, oh, it's a mystical experience, because that's just, you know, it's just a word. But the thing is that if it's something that you don't understand, you owe it to yourself and to others, if you're a communicator, to investigate it deeply and actually learn to understand what it is. And then you can use it as a tool in your bag to visually influence people in the future. I personally don't like the idea of artists as being a club or a group, or even being an artist. What I find compelled to do is to simply connect with people in whatever unique way, because we are all different in some way, but it's to tap into whatever that might be, communicate it in some way. And you want to call it art or whatever, because it's visual, I really don't care. But is to develop some kind of language which is relevant to now, because I think you can tiptoe around all kinds of mythology and symbology and references to previous cultures, etc. But it's not going to get you relating to people now. You know, if you mention Prometheus, whoever, you've immediately dismissed 90% of your potential audience, because they ain't going to know who the hell that is. You know, so make it somebody familiar, make it something people can associate with, and work with those kind of symbols if you want to, if you need symbols. And I think it's crucial. I'm sorry if I'm being a bit harsh here, but I find it crucial to not self-inflict ourselves with the retarding, and I mean that not in the insensitive manner, but in the literal sense, the retarding approach of homage to past stuff. You be influenced by the attitude of it, by the intention of it, and the desperate passion of it to communicate in and of its time, but then leave it, drop it, and then let that just seep through you to then create that in the present, because otherwise no one's going to get that shit. No one's going to understand what the hell you're talking about. And if you think you're a communicator, then, you know, be articulate, be as clear. You know, if I could write, if I could write something clear, I would write, but it's too much of a definite conceptual wordy kind of thing. So I do enjoy the vagarisms of the visual meaning, but try and get as close to saying something clear as you can, if you value and respect your audience.
So, so you're using new, relatable. What you're saying in this piece is with like the Batman image and things like that. You're using more contemporary imagery to convey your messages.
Well, how would I not? I am a contemporary person.
Let's dive into this piece and maybe you could give us some examples of the way that you do that.
I won't and can't explain what this is meant to do, but my motivation is what I said.
Okay.
If I could,
okay.
No, I'm not being evasive. I'm saying that if I could clearly articulate that better or equally in words, then I would write it down. But this image is the best way that I can clearly, hopefully, express the thing that, you know, this speaks better than I could. And it does bother me if people don't interpret it in a reasonably accurate way to what I wanted. You know, I'm not, I would not, I don't want to just like be, you know, triggering people to have some kind of mind trip of their own. I'm looking to manipulate people's minds, you know. Now I get it that they're not going to totally get it, but I'm trying real damn hard to put things together that will sow a seed of familiar images in a composed and juxtaposed in a certain manner that will have an effect on their psyche that might get close towards what I'm trying to get.
Well, let's have a look at the other two and we can let them speak for themselves, and then yeah, then we can move on. But I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Cool. I mean, there is a lot of symbology in this, but I'm hoping that it's more relevant to a bigger audience that can get it. So when there's somebody flying through the air, it has a certain meaning. When it seems that maybe somebody is putting that person through the air, or maybe they're actually capturing. But the truth is there is no movement. You know, he's simply there. He could be.
It's a two-way symbology. It has a direct thing that it means for you, and you want someone else to find your meaning.
No, not at all. I'm aware that it is going to be presumed that this is a moment in time that has a before and after, and people will read that into the image. So is the guy being thrown, or is he being captured? Is he going up, down, left, right? There's no idea, but that for me doesn't matter. It's the fact that he's in that position and connected as closely as he is to the hand of the other person. That's one thing I can know that people will see without, you know, a more extended, flamboyant interpretation, you know? And
so that's good. It's
right. And the idea of the there's a ubiquitous kind of symbol, the babies, people caring for the babies, the guy looking up at this brain kind of thing. And, you know, it's what I intend to try and do is not to make a complete image that is readable, but is to sort of, to have it so, its symbolism to be sewn into the brain. You can't unsee something, right? So you observe it, you see the relationships, you look around, you get a feeling, and it sinks in. And I intend, or I presume, that when my painting gets to work is when they walk away and forget about it, but it's going to still be playing on their existential makeup of their mindset of who they feel they are. And that's where I think the work is being done. They're not meant to be aesthetically pleasing, or although I can't help myself from feeling that I'm doing that throughout the the composition, etc. But
So you want more of an existentialist like moment, or is the relationships that's going on? There's different relationships happening, not in the terms of personal relationships, but more conceptual relationships. How
that we might all as adults feel a connection to, and that there is as little variation of interpretation as possible. I mean, everyone's got their own experience of a guy staring at a woman's crotch that appears to have her pants loosened. So there's some kind of symbology there, but I'm not going to say it's Prometheus doing it or something. It's a dude, with a grimace, so it has an action, it creates an action. And then he's holding on to somebody else. So there's the linkage and the juxtaposition of objects together will create the emotion, not in the expression of the paint. I don't use paint. Not in the colors. I find colors very misleading. I used to use color, but if you imagine that everybody has a reaction to color, right? Even actually in quite a similar kind of way, but even if it's a different, your own personal way, before you even get to see actually the figurative narrative going on with the line of the image, as you're walking up to the piece, and even whilst you're in front of the piece, you are being affected by all these colors. You see red, you go, you see blue, and I don't want these colors pulling my viewer around all over the place when it's not what I want. I want them to see things that are represented, that they identify with, that in this recipe to make this painting have a certain flavor. And colors only misdirect, in my opinion. So blue to me is a common kind of rendering color, like a Bic blue pen that you might write with, so I find it an acceptable color you don't really see, as opposed to black, which I find a bit harsh.
Okay, great, thank you. That's a good insight into your work, unexpected insight in, because they do evoke things that feel intuitive and mystical, and so it's good to have you on to state your intention in the pieces. All right, so Barbara Colo, are you still on?
I'm here. Hi.
Great.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, let's get into, yeah, absolutely. So it's a good contrast. I mean, instead of going from one artist that relates to the next, kind of jumping from one that's kind of a contrast.
My work can be any more different.
Yeah, so yours is a very intuitive, meditative sort of work, but it does come from a pretty strict process of dotting process.
Yeah, the images are kind of small, so I'd like to explain what's going on. I'm taking one shade of color. It's a shade of blue. It's which isn't reflected in the title, and I'm going from its darkest shade and creating circles, circle after circle after circle, in a very meditative process, and adding white, so it's getting lighter and lighter and lighter, and it's forming kind of like a tunnel. And the inspiration behind this came from my experience in 2020, being locked down, the coronavirus, all of that. And I feel in this piece that I'm creating kind of like a safe space, a space to escape to. It has no ending in sight, kind of like the coronavirus, no ending in sight to our fate here. So the idea behind it was that, but as far as it being mystical, I think the process that I go through is very mystical. It's very meditative process. It's a very primitive process of putting down dots. Many cultures have done it, African, Aboriginal, even Asian. You get into like a meditative quality, which also helped with dealing with the lockdown. These paintings, a lot of people have always said to me, oh, that must be so frustrating to do that. The truth is it's very pleasurable and it's very meditative. And it's kind of a pleasure to do them. But another interesting thing about the painting is I had never really done things with such depth before. My paintings tend to be not really flat, but not quite dealing with depth and light to this extreme. And that's been kind of fun for me. I really enjoyed that. And I think it actually has enhanced my work. Any questions?
I noticed that with these two new pieces.
There's lots of depth. It almost feels like it goes on to infinity, which is a very interesting quality. But I also like the idea of, being in this crazy world we're dealing with and creating this space that is a complete escape. And such a different mindset. I've gotten into that, and I want to explore that in different ways beyond what you see here. I think my next works will deal with that.
Beautiful. Excellent. So
that's it.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm really enjoyed the process here on Zoom. It's been fun to hear everyone.
Yeah, a lot of different. It's very cool to see all the different artists and philosophies behind their works. Just making sure. Let me look through and make sure if there's anyone else we haven't spoken to. Helen was on earlier, Lois, but I don't see her here anymore. I guess we can just, for a bit, just open the floor for questions. Just unmute yourself. If anyone has any questions or comments, or if any artists there's a big list of people here, so I might not see your name. Any artist that is in the show that I didn't call on earlier, please speak up and we'll look at your work and chat about it. But otherwise, let's, anyone has any comments or questions for any of the artists, or
Thomas, how many gallons? Thomas, how many gallons of media go into an average piece?
That's an excellent question. I buy 5-gallon pails of medium on a regular basis. So yes, there's a lot of paint and medium involved. So yeah, quite gallons. So yeah.
I respect that. Back when I was a sculptor, I also bought in the 5-gallon pail standard. So
Yeah, it's, yeah.
I have a question. Do you think you would fit in the fiber arts field too? Like cross over into like fiber? You're doing fiber on a certain level with your paint.
It's thank you. It's paint. The encapsulated strength member is there. I think these are paintings. These are paintings that are a different. It's a branch off it. These are paintings that don't have a canvas. I'm sorry. I don't.
You're using string, so you could even be in a fiber. I mean,
there are different strength members that I use. In these three paintings, I am using it's a strength member that does have some absorptive quality, but I have other paintings that I'm making that are transparent, and they have transparent strength members. And so I use different strength members in different series. So I don't think I would want to be classified or classification, I think is people like to pigeonhole so that they can understand. And I understand, I get that, but I think I want them to be viewed as paintings.
I'm not putting it down. They're beautiful, but I'm just, I think they're gorgeous, but there's this textile quality to them too, because they're.
I appreciate that. Yes, from the fact that they're strands, but I've got a lot of the paintings where there's embellishments and this and that, and I think the strand, let's say the strand quality or aspect might go away, or maybe not go away, but like the painting of Carolina's Ascension, where there's the embellishment and you really can't see the paint strands any longer, or even with Samson where there's the looping. So it's, I guess if you wanted to call it fiber art, I guess
it's sort of like an integrated thing. I mean, they're gorgeous, but
Can I ask a question?
I appreciate
Sure,
that.
yeah. We have another question coming in.
Oh,
Yeah.
I apologize. Okay.
No, it's also for Thomas. I love your work. I think it would be amazing if it would be like 10 times larger. If it was hanging between two Corinthian columns or something, it would just be incredible.
I have a 12-foot. I have the paintings. Here's a 6-footer. The paintings are these are the ones that I've shown are smaller. The normal size of my paintings are 72 by 72 and even larger. So
I'm
I
talking
appreciate
30
that
by
comment.
30 feet.
Thank you. And
make it the size of a building. It would just be incredible. And have it outside so it blows in the wind a little.
Start buying 55-gallon drums.
Yes, I hear what you're saying. Yes, I have made a 12-foot painting, and wow. It really is it really is pretty spectacular. So yes, I do plan on making monumental like I'd love to make 8 by 16 foot paintings,
Cool.
but I need to sell a couple in order to be able to afford the rent to have the space to make them.
Maybe use your paint, the paint manufacturer as your sponsor.
They should be. They
Yeah.
should be. Yes. I should talk to them about that. So thank you. I will do that. Thank you. Thanks.
Beautiful, beautiful work.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Great. Any other questions, comments?
I have a question. I mean,
Sure.
first, this was such an amazing event. I think everything was so eclectic. I have a question for is it Alyosha? Can we see your studio if you don't mind? Can we see more of your work behind you?
That's not bad. It's almost close.
There
It's
you go.
Alyosha. I have my mobile phone activated. I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it?
What's the name of it? Let me.
It's also, yeah,
Oh,
you got
there we
it.
go.
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So it's pretty, I give you 360. So this is, so I put some work out that I have, and so I'm working with like space, and this is where I store my my work, and where I sleep, and where my cat sleeps. So this is pretty much the place where I store all my work.
Yeah, it almost opens like into a new space with the sort of work you've chosen in there. Expands the space. Yeah.
That was the thought. I mean, I did this project. It's called Thinking of Earlier Times Windows. So I put them on the wall. I have one here on the wall, for example. That's it's an original window size, and so it creates a view. In fact, so I can actually look out and see First Avenue in Manhattan in the East Village, or I can look out and see memories from my childhood, or see like other people's memories. So look here. Yeah. So that's the studio. Yeah, that's pretty much in here. Some studies, like little studies that I do of work. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Also, I would like to extend a thank you for that, and for setting this up so beautifully. I think it's very nice to come together in times like this through the virtual channels, and that's a very good thing, I believe. Just one thing I wanted to say in regards of including the spectator to the creative process. Like for me, I like to be ambiguous about my work, because as Galia said, if I was able to express myself orally, I would be a writer or.
So, sorry to interrupt. I'm going through my wife's laptop, and her name is Galia. My name's Steve.
Steve, I apologize. So
That's okay. Nice to meet you.
I agree. Nice to meet you, Steve. I agree with you on the that I can express myself only visually by painting, not verbally too well, because then I would be a writer. I just like when I present my work that people have their own ideas to it. I want to be ambiguous. So I guess that's where we differentiate in some ways, because I find it almost, I don't want to impose myself on other people. Something that I relate to, morbidity or death, or I don't know, someone else might interpret as joy and happiness. In fact, somebody put a painting in their living room that I sold one of my paintings that for me was a very dark kind of challenge, and he has it hanging in his living room, which I find quite.
I think that it's a godsend that we are different.
Sure.
You know, the idiosyncratic is the only thing that's going to make something different and change and affect people. So vive la différence. We should celebrate this.
No, I agree. I think I agree with that, but I appreciate the variety of like different approaches as well. Me, for myself, I believe that if somebody understands my message by themselves without me telling them, it's stuck more in their understanding than if I tell them what to think.
That's a
Like
good
it's less authoritative
Yeah.
and more like we are like, I'm not explaining you, I want to show you my point of view. But I like different approaches, and sometimes the provocative approach, which I'm not good at, which I don't, is not my cup of tea, is interesting to look at. So yeah.
Allo, this is Peter Carr. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I apologize for the
He gave you a
mispronunciation.
nickname. It's Allo.
I'm going to call you
Alyosha.
Alyosha. Okay, great. That's close to Aloysius, which
It's
was
close, yeah. It's,
which was my father's middle name. Your painting of the person watching the other person,
yeah.
and your description of the purple painting of the sense of claustrophobia, it literally touched my soul. I sent you a couple messages.
Oh, I appreciate that.
I was blown by it. I mean, first of all, I love purple, and I love what purple represents. I love color, but that painting of the purple painting going into a corner, I mean, I have those dreams, and I get that entirely, where you're just like sitting there wanting to get away from it, but you captured it, and it's not that feeling of angst, but more of a feeling of beauty and solemnity. And so I thank you for that.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
Yeah, and I also dig the viewer in the background. And it's interesting you brought up Edward Hopper, because that's the first thing that came to my mind when I saw it and when I viewed the artsy page. Edward Hopper.
Sometimes when I'm like in between works, and that's for me always a very painful process, because I have to start something new. I don't know where it goes. Sometimes I just let it go of control, and I just watch documentaries on diverse, like certain artists, or absorb a book, or listen to specific music. And then like I get these inputs, and that must have been like some Edward Hopper BBC documentary, or I don't know, something like that, like that period. But yeah, I mean, it's for me a representation of my. That's the way. I don't know, like it's.
No, I understand that. For me, it's poetry.
Yeah, it's visual poetry. Yeah,
poetry, and reading poetry for me. And then listening to the lyrics of thoughtful musical writers, like hearing what people say, not just blather, but deep, thoughtful lyrics in music, and from there you go from there, and that's what's cool. I dig that.
I think the human condition is it's pretty crazy, because we have a lot of information in us. Like we have social, ecological information, we have personal information. Like we are kind of a micro universe of the whole thing called humanity. And so we have a lot to offer, and I think it should be said. And one does it as a blacksmith, the other one as a painter, and the other one as a bodybuilder. So I think it's better to create than to destroy in any case, but sometimes you have to destroy.
I'll leave it with this. The purple painting, that does feel claustrophobic to me, because I suffer from claustrophobia, which is the reason why it was so personal. It also is oddly freeing, and not that sense of end. There's a sense that you'll get away from it. And I dig that painting. When I first looked at it artsy, I just wanted to let you know that your art really touched me. And so again, dude, cool. I'm a California surfer. I can't help the dude part.
I appreciate it, dude. No, I do.
It's a nice meeting point of East Coast, West Coast for this exhibit somehow.
Yeah, for sure.
Great. Any other questions? Rounding up towards 9, where we'll close the meeting either way. But anyone else welcome to have a comment or a question.
Can I ask a comment to you, Om?
Sure.
What is your motivation for bringing the Winter Mystic thing together as a theme? Do you have a particular motivation?
No, not a motivation. The two words just popped into my head, Winter Mystic, when I was going over, just going through works that we'd shown. It just popped into my head.
Mm-hmm.
It was a good excuse to draw a lot of artists that we'd shown before, and then find new artists to fit the theme.
Yeah.
I think it has to do with the northern lights sparkling behind your head. I think it's a point where we're all led, and you're a terrific leader because you're an open-minded leader. And in this art world, you are a set apart from everyone else. Most people I've experienced.
I'm more like an instigator than a leader.
Thoughts coming out of his head. These are actually emanation of plasma.
Funny, it's true.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure. Yeah.
I have a question.
Go with it, Om.
Perfect. I was just wondering, as a technical question, how are your paintings hung? I love that they're paintings not on canvas. I think that's so genius. But how are they hung?
So they just are long strands of the encapsulated medium just over a bar. So they go, yeah. So the painting may be 6 feet, but it's actually 12 feet because they're double-sided.
Wow.
So that's the idea. And what's so, I think, cool about it is that it adds a dimensional aspect that traditional painting just really can't provide or can't achieve.
Is that plywood as your backing?
There's a bit of a element to it.
It's not
dimension.
There's no backing to it.
Yeah.
They're encapsulated strength members. So anyway, it's I say it's paint suspended, existing freely in three-dimensional space.
Without catalyst?
Would you prefer them to be hanging in an open space so they can be seen and walked around?
Yes, I have some of the paintings where they would be hanging from the ceiling, so that, yes, you could walk around them in 3D. So yes, I do have some of those. Yeah, so that's the idea, that it's the paint existing in three-dimensional space, which is not the typical presentation. So I'm exploring it in a number of ways. So
that's so
I'm
great.
having fun.
Are they very fragile?
No. Let's so
give them a shake.
Yeah, if you break.
Oh man, right on.
Oh God. All
no,
right.
they're pretty darn durable.
Oh, that's great.
They're yeah. This is yeah. They're pretty darn durable.
Bravo.
So yeah, the strength members are yeah. So
you keep saying strength members. I mean, you've added an additional medium to them beyond just acrylic paint.
No, it's so it is it's a blend of a gel and a gloss medium, And
Does
then,
it dry quickly?
I'm sorry?
It dries quickly?
On a warm day, it does. On a cold day, I have to wait 2 days. So, yeah, it may take me 3 or 4 days just to make a series of strands because it might take a while for them to dry.
It's just curious as they're flexible when you put your hand behind them, and I think that's really interesting. But they also look resilient.
They are. I wanted it to be, I spoke to a chemist at the University of Massachusetts at Lowell's Polymer Science Department. I wanted these to be archival. I don't want people buying these and then 10 years from now they fall apart. When I first started making these, I didn't have a strength member in them. And so I had these paintings hung up and I sat there and watched them start to stretch. Before I knew it, I had piles of paint strands on the floor. And so I'm like, well, that failed. And so I had to start over again, and I spoke to people, and the encapsulated strength member is what allowed me to have the archival durability, but still present the paint in a three-dimensional space. And so
I'm going to ask you one last question. You're in Los Angeles?
Yes, sir.
Same here.
Yeah.
Cool. Excellent.
We have
another LA.
It's the LA guys versus the New York guys.
Well, there's another LA artist, Helen or Alois. I see that she just joined. It looked like she's been trying to jump on all night. Helen, can you?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, hey, how you doing?
Do you see me? Because
Yes.
it was quite a puzzle for me because it's first time on Zoom.
So this is Alois's work here. It's called Angel of Trust.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I've been in your studio so many. Oh, I love those. I originally thought they were yours when you were quizzing me on which ones were yours or not. I love those. Those are so mystical and cool.
Yeah.
It's a circular frame. It's just the background is being painted white here, but it's actually a circular shaped.
This is oval antique frame and oil on wood. And actually this painting, you can use glass or without glass, it's up to you. When you use glass, of course, it's a little bit reflection, but it's different effect, it's kind of vault and you want to, to see more closer and to see what's going on where. But without glass, it's different. This is my two characters from Floating Kingdom. Floating Kingdom is kind of world which I created all time. It's space between our world and parallel world, and I, create some creatures which friendly to me, and I can communicate with them during the art process. So the dog, his name is Lafayette. I remember his story, and he is not pet. This time, it's a kind of creature combination between owl, cat, and maybe flying fox. Yeah. Do you understand me? Because
yes, I do. Yeah. But you said that he is not the pet of the owl creature. What's their relationship if he's not the pet?
Actually, we live together because Lafayette, it's pretend like pet for Theo. but his friend, because in parallel reality, we don't have pets. We pets like friends.
In that world, the pets are like the friends. Yeah.
Yeah, and why it's angel of trust? Because he's like angel investor who invest in your happiness, childish, and we think happiness is easy. So, and the most problem is to focus and catch right moment, and keep this moment inside you. So very happy all time. Theo use tricycle. It's kind of some device which was developed 19th century, I suppose. Yeah, so we work together and like local guys, and if you will be lucky, you can meet with them, and maybe they bring you luck and happiness, and understand reality maybe different way.
Great. So do they work in symbiotically to bring happiness, or does the angel bring the happiness on his own?
It's symbiotic happiness. Why it's angel? Because if you need real angel and who can develop happiness in you, and he invest in you. It's kind of like that.
These are technically brilliant paintings.
Yeah, usually I love some details used in my paintings, and all my paintings, most paintings, on black background. I don't know how it happens, but every time I reuse black background, it's kind of color. I found it's strange, but I found it's very warm for me. Black maybe, penetrate a lot of energy, I suppose. And if you put your main characters on black, like Old Master did, like Velasquez, Rembrandt used some dark background, your character pop up in this case. And I like work this way.
Excellent. Do you happen to have any of your work in your studio you can put the camera on, or not?
Oh yeah, it's I don't know. Let me.
Do you know how to flip the camera? Oh, that's okay. It's cool to see just like this.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is large scale painting, and this another character, Otto. This is a boy creature, and he has Viking spirit. So if you notice, he has like Viking helmet, and he is in his orchard of love. And it's strange combination with apples, red apples, and some apple cores, a lot of apple cores. But right now he bite green apple. So what about this? This is about, he is hunting some desires, and every time he accumulates more and more desires and hunt them and possess, I suppose, these desires and going to another. It's more, it's a little bit macabre, maybe.
Can I say something?
Sure.
You you really, there's two television shows that I'm a sci-fi nut. There's two television shows that come to mind that I love. One is a television show that's no longer on the air called Grimm.
Uh-huh.
And your creatures are from Grimm, and I love them. And the other one is His Dark Matters, which is out right now. And it's this connection of having an animal that's part of your soul.
Yeah.
That
I
if that
think,
animal dies, you die. And so they're like one another, and the one goes out in front of the other and helps the other. And that's in His Dark Matters, but I see them both, and it's like, for me, as a sci-fi nerd, I when I saw your pictures live in Ohm Studio or Gallery, I love them. I really love them.
Well,
I
thank
just
you
want you
very
to know
much.
that.
And it's quite surprise for me that you notice I have kind of animal spirit inside me. Yeah, it's true, because I associate myself like quite animoid, not a little bit humanoid, a little bit animoid. Yeah, I
a little
have
of that.
one another. Oh my God, let me. It's quite big work. I'm not good with. Oh, maybe you
Oh
see.
boy.
Oh, that's Aang right there. Looks
Yeah,
like.
this is particular beast. It's humanoid. Her name is Beatrix, and she is next to wild boars. Wild boars, it's kind of wild energy around her,
Yeah.
and they communicate each other. So, and they create kind of vortex.
Where did the wild boar image come from you?
Oh, first of all, I love very much wild boar because I grew up in Germany, and it's kind of symbol.
Yeah.
Austria and Germany wild boars represent earth power and masculine, and actually this is wild boar. It's a kind of man.
Wildschwein, ein Wildschwein, ein Wildschwein.
Yeah,
I asked that.
Yeah, and I try to create kind of bestiary around.
I asked that question because I'm from the Carmel, California, and the wild boar are everywhere. And I grew up around wild boar, and they're frightening. They're big. They're actually really masculine, and they're extraordinary animals.
Yeah, it's
they're all head.
They're all head.
In German, you call them Wildschwein. I am from Austria. I was born and raised in Austria. So we.
Yeah, in every hunting store, they have some toys like this wild boar, and it's like emblem for a castle wild boar. It's not only subject for hunting. It's kind of a subject that represents a huge power associated with earth.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Excellent. That's great. It was great to get into that world a little bit with you, Lois.
Yeah, and finally I'm on Zoom.
Yay! Yeah. This is a whole other world, the Zoom world.
Okay, and thank you guys.
It's a thrill for me knowing who now painted those paintings in Ohm's gallery. To see it, it's like a woman, and you have such a strong sense of connection with the animals. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. Unfortunately, I don't have any seascapes because, I working sometimes with seascapes, not peacefully more like wave rolls, you know, huge storm is dramatic seascape, or most seascapes gone, but I think I'm ready for some newscapes because sometimes I need time out from all the beasts, all, you know, animoid, humanoids, or something like that. I need the ocean. Yeah, yeah. So, and I challenge like that all time.
Well, we have a lot of that here in Southern California, so you have plenty of beautiful places to go to.
Okay, yeah, yeah. So I need just find the right moment when it's big storm, full moon. This is my scenario. Yeah. Okay.
Beautiful. Well, let's slip off and look at the moon, everybody, ourselves. That was
Okay,
a
thank
lovely
you.
note to end on.
Thank you so much, Om.
Yeah,
Thank you,
my
thank you all.
pleasure.
Thank
Great to have
Bye-bye,
everyone
guys.
here. This was